my name's Peter Clarkson and I am a geologist, and these objects that you see here were collected by me in Antarctica in a place called the Shackleton Range. When I was working in Antarctica for the British Antarctic Survey, I was a young man, and it was a tremendous adventure. My job was to collect the rocks, find out how they were formed, how they'd been changed over time, and generally to understand how they came to be there and how they related to other parts of Antarctica. In those days, this was in 1968, we were working in the mountains with dog teams. So we couldn't really collect very much rock because the dogs used to complain if they had to pull, if the sledge was too heavy. Sometimes it was cold, sometimes it was very windy. Believe it or not, even though we were just 600 miles from the South Pole, I actually spent an hour one afternoon sledging without a shirt on. Rocks are everywhere. They're formed the simplest way. If you think of a river flowing down a mountain, it's washing away bits of the surrounding rocks, and then when it gets down to the sea, these bits of rock and silt and mud, so they drop out. Millions of years later, that mud and the little bits of stuff in it have been buried to a very great depth and heated. It will become very solid and hard, and it will become a rock. And here is a simple sedimentary rock that's been formed in exactly that way. And eventually it might turn into something like this. It's called a garnet mica schist. A schist is a rock that has been very heavily pressurized. Garnet, of course, is used as a gemstone. These rocks are much older than this rock. I think is about 500 million years old. These are probably at least twice that. Sometimes people wonder why we collect rocks anywhere. The rocks in Antarctica, in many cases, show that at one time, some 200 million years ago, Antarctica was actually connected to South America, South Africa, India, Australia and New Zealand. And then about 200 million years ago, that supercontinent called, as we call it, Gondwana, began to break up. So all these things, in many cases, can be answered by studying the rocks. When they were first picked up, they were just pieces of rock. They'd been worked. Something like this, they'd have rounded it off and made it into a shape, and that shape would mean something to the people who did the work. But as far as the scientist was concerned, this was just another rock, and it told him something interesting because it had fossils in it. So rocks mean different things to different people.